This is the video where you learn everything that you need to know about your Insta360 X5 action camera. The Insta360 X5 is one of the best cameras for shooting 360 content. These cameras allow you to shoot videos and photos of everything, and then later, you or your audience decide what they want to look at. They can also capture certain shots which are impossible to achieve with a regular camera. Now, these cameras can be a little bit daunting if you're unfamiliar with how they work. Maybe you've had this camera for a while and you haven't fully got to grips with it. Either way, this video is for you. The X5 is a considerable upgrade on the X4, but there's also been some recent updates to the X5 in the last few weeks. So I'm going to go through all these new features in the next section. After that, I'll go through everything from getting set up, the basics of shooting video, to more advanced techniques. So what's new with the Insta360 X5? The X5 is slightly taller than the X4 and has a somewhat different textured pattern on the back for improved heat dissipation. This is just going to help prevent overheating during longer 8K recording sessions. The USB-C port on the X5 has been relocated compared to the X4, so this means that some older X4 accessories, they might need upgrading. Both the X4 and the X5 have the same 2.5-inch touchscreen size. The X5 has significantly larger sensors. We've got dual 1/1.28-inch sensors compared to the X4's dual 1/2-inch sensors. The X5 also features a triple AI chip system with 2 Pro Imaging chips plus the 5nm AI chip, delivering about 140% more processing power than the X4. And this upgrade basically results in clearer, crisper visuals and better image quality overall. The X5 now introduces PureVideo Mode. So if you actually own an Ace Pro action camera, you'll know all about PureVideo, and in the X5 it has the same kind of function. It's an AI-boosted low-light mode that makes night and low-light footage brighter and more vivid, with some pretty powerful noise reduction. The X5 now supports active HDR at 5.7K and 60 frames per second, whereas the X4 was limited to 5.7K and 30 frames per second. Now the X5 can shoot 4K 120 frames per second in regular video mode, whereas the X4 can only shoot 100 frames per second in 4K. The X4 can shoot 120 frames per second, but you have to switch to bullet time mode, which is a bit of a very specific mode and not really any good for general use. There's also a new log mode called iLog on the X5. The X4 only has a flat color profile and no log. The X5 now features replaceable lenses, and these are made of a durable, high-strength, scratch-resistant glass. The X5 has a bigger battery, providing longer life, so that's around 185 minutes versus 135 minutes on the X4, and it's got improved waterproofing all the way down to 15 meters, which is 49 feet, which compares to the X4's 10 meters or 33 feet. There's a new mode called InstaFrame, and this allows in-camera reframing to produce a flat video alongside the 360 video, which allows you to immediately share files without having to edit them first. There's a new mode called Twist to Shoot, which is also exclusive to the Insta360 X5. This allows you to start or stop video recording, and you can take photos as well, and all you have to do is just twist the selfie stick back and forth a couple of times while the camera is powered on. And this is going to work in various shooting modes like burst, photo, video, PureVideo, InstaFrame, TimeShift, loop recording, and others. So to enable Twist to Shoot, just swipe down from the top, swipe left, and then tap the Twist to Shoot button. Toggle it on, and then close. Insta360 have also added gesture control and voice control 2.0 to the X5, and this allows you to control your X5 from a distance using gesture or voice commands.
Unlike with the X4, you don't have to worry about attaching wind guards because the X5 has them built into the camera. So this built-in guard has multiple layers and a steel mesh that helps to cut down wind noise in your recordings. Plus there's an upgraded algorithm that helps to keep your voice free of noise and background sounds and wind, and also helps to improve the quality of your voice with various AI algorithms. And so with this new algorithm helping to beef up the sound of your voice, making it sound clearer, that means that you can work on your vlogs without necessarily buying extra equipment. But if you did want to add a microphone, you're probably going to get better sound. If you do, then you can add the new Insta360 Mic Air, which is a Bluetooth microphone.
New for the X5 is fast charging. So this allows you to charge a battery from 0% to 80% in roughly 20 minutes. Okay, so there's been some important updates for the X5 since the camera was released, so let's quickly go through them. Adaptive Tone is a new intelligent exposure system which balances light between the dual lenses, preserving highlight and shadow detail for more natural looking footage in complex lighting scenarios. And this works in 8K 30 frames per second, as well as 5.7K 30 frames per second, 360 video and PureVideo modes. Previously limited to 360 video, PureVideo's AI-powered low-light enhancement is now available in single lens mode as well. Endurance mode now works with 8K 30 frames per second video for nearly 2 hours of continuous shooting. So this improved endurance mode, if you're set to 5.7K at 24 frames per second, extends runtime to 208 minutes, and that was previously 185 minutes. And Insta360 have just brought out a new Ultra battery, and that gives you 17% more capacity and offers nearly 4 hours or 235 minutes runtime, and that is available as an extra purchase. So these are the first ND filters designed for 360 cameras, and they've been introduced for the X5, and they enable some more cinematic motion blur and precise exposure control in bright conditions, and we'll talk more about these later. So this is the custom replacement lens kit, and this allows you to swap damaged lenses with new ones. So we've got some software and editing improvements as well. Insta360 Studio now supports faster export speeds. We've got AI stitching algorithm improvements, as well as background export. We've also got this quick preview feature, which allows previewing the Insta360 360 files directly in the file folders without having to open them in the Studio software first. So that's pretty useful. The Insta360 app has also been updated with a smart grid layout, as well as some preset perspective editing tools. We've got the Insta360 Plus cloud service, which has been expanded with up to 2 terabytes of storage and full integration with Insta360 Studio. So that's about all the updates we have at this time, and I'm going to go into some of these in more depth as we go through the video. I've actually got the Essentials bundle, and this is what comes with this package. First up, you get the Insta360 X5 camera itself. Alongside the camera, you'll find 2 batteries. One comes installed, and there's a spare for longer shooting days. We've also got a utility fast charging case, so you can power up both batteries at once when you need to recharge. But there's also the official 114cm invisible selfie stick, there's a pair of standard lens guards, and there's a lens cap for covering the lenses when the cameras are not in use. There's the protective pouch for the X5, and there's also this carry case which you can fit everything in, and it's pretty decent for travel. And as well, we've got the regulation Type-C charging cable, there's a cleaning cloth, and actually these microphone cleaning stickers to help you keep your mic ports clear of dust and other stuff. Before you start, it's always a good idea to fully charge it, install a micro SD card to store your media, and then go through the activation process. To charge, open the USB-C port cover and then connect the camera to a power source. I just use a regular USB-C phone charger. While charging, the front light turns this kind of orange, and the touchscreen shows the current battery level. You're going to have to activate your camera, so download and install the latest Insta360 app on your phone if you haven't already, and then enable Bluetooth. Power on the X5 by pressing the top of the 2 side buttons briefly, and you're going to see blue lights on the front and the back while it powers up. Once on, the app should detect the camera via Bluetooth. Connect to it, and you're most likely going to be prompted to update the firmware. So complete that update first, and then activate the camera through the app by following the on-screen instructions. To install a micro SD card, open the battery compartment, pull out the battery, and then just slide in the card. If you have an Insta360 micro SD card, it should be pre-formatted already. Otherwise, you might want to format the card via the camera settings by swiping down from the top of the screen, tapping the settings cog, and then selecting SD card followed by format. And now with the X5, we've got this extra option, which is to perform a low-level format. So this extra level of formatting kind of repairs your SD card, and it kind of resets it to an almost new condition. So low-level formatting takes a bit longer than the regular format, but this thoroughness helps fix problems like corrupted data or bad sectors, and it can actually improve the card's write and read performance, and as well as reliability. Insta360 recommends using UHS 1 micro SD cards with a V30 or higher speed class formatted as exFAT. And you should probably avoid cards that are larger than 1 terabyte for reliability purposes. For the best quality video, especially shooting 8K at high bit rates, you might want to think about going all the way up to a 1 terabyte micro SD card. But note that Insta360's own branded cards currently go up to 512 gigabytes. So for the 1 terabyte capacity, you will need a third-party brand. So before you start using the Insta360 X5, it's a pretty good idea to decide how you want the camera to save battery. If you're just using one battery, saving power is obviously going to matter more. And if you have spare batteries, then you can be a little bit less concerned and you can adjust your settings accordingly. So the X5 has two main power saving methods. The first one is that after a set time of inactivity, the screen is going to turn off. It's just going to go to sleep. And the second one is if the camera remains inactive beyond that, it's going to fully power off. The default settings are 90 seconds before the screen sleeps and 3 minutes before the camera powers off. If the camera goes to sleep, you can just wake it up by tapping the power button once. You can also put the screen to sleep manually by short pressing the power button. If it powers off, you're going to need to press the power button to turn it back on. So you can change the auto sleep and power off timings. You just swipe down on the touchscreen, tap the settings cog, and then scroll to auto sleep and auto power off options to adjust them as you prefer. There's also an option to prevent the screen from turning off during recording if you need it to be on constantly. As well, the X5 introduces the endurance mode, which optimizes settings, and it also disables quite a few features, and that's going to maximize battery life. Below the touchscreen, you'll find two buttons. The left is the shutter record button, and the right one is the menu button. And both of these can be customized in the settings to perform other functions if you prefer. On the side of the camera, we've got the power button on top, and below that the quick button or Q button. And the quick button lets you cycle through preset shooting modes or launch custom modes that you've set up. We've also got these microphone holes at the top and also on the front and back below the cameras, which is pretty similar to the X4. The Insta360 X5 has a 2.5-inch touchscreen that displays shooting info as well as controls. The UI does look pretty similar to the X4, but it also works a bit differently. So when you first power on your X5, if you don't change anything, this is most likely what you're going to see. Now, if you want to hide the UI for a cleaner view, you just tap the screen and then tap it again to bring it back. Top left shows the remaining SD card recording time, which adapts based on the resolution and the settings. Top right is the remaining battery. You can tap on it or just swipe down if you want to see the battery level as a percentage. Bottom left shows the current shooting mode. For example, video. Next to the mode are its specific settings like resolution and frame rate. Bottom right is a button which allows you to toggle between the front and rear lenses, and it also serves as a recenter button. When you're in single lens mode, you will also get a field of view button here. And if you're familiar with action cameras or Insta360 cameras, you will be familiar with these field of view settings. If the preview is off center because maybe you just swipe the screen to look somewhere else, you can just tap the switch button and it's going to reset it. So of course, when you're in 360 mode, this toggling between the front and rear lenses is only for preview because you're recording video from all around. From here, you can change shooting modes by tapping the mode button, and then cycling through either by swiping or tapping. And then you can tap the mode, or you can actually just press the shutter button to select. You could also use the menu button, just press once and then keep pressing to switch between photo and video mode. Otherwise, you need to swipe or tap the screen again to access other modes. To change the settings of the selected mode, you just tap the information to the right of the mode button. And you can see here that my current settings are 5.7K and 30 frames per second. To change that, we can just tap those numbers. Another way to access these settings is to swipe up from the bottom. And now we can swipe and tap to select new settings, and then swipe away to get rid of the settings. To get more advanced settings, we can swipe left from the right edge of the screen, and this is going to allow you to set exposure in different ways. We can set white balance, choose between the old 3 color profiles, which are standard, vivid, and flat. And we also now get this option to shoot in iLog, depending on your settings. And there's going to be various other settings here as well. Whatever mode you're in, swipe down from the top to open up some more general options, including the settings cog. Finally, to view your media gallery, we just swipe right from the edge. The Insta360 X5 allows you to shoot with both cameras, which is called the 360 mode, or with one of the cameras, which is called single lens mode. So when you're in the mode picking screen at the top, you can also select between 360 or single lens. The available camera modes are going to be different for 360 and then single lens, so in the text version of this video, I've put a list of the different modes, along with a free downloadable PDF of this whole tutorial for easy reference. So let's talk about recording video. Obviously, press record to start recording, and the light is going to start flashing red and the counter is going to start ticking as you would expect. But you're also going to get this little flag button bottom left, and this flag is used to mark places in the video so you can find them easier later. You can also use them to help you edit the video. While you're recording, you can just tap this flag to add a marker, but of course, obviously you might not always be able to do this depending on where your camera is mounted. One of the issues with 360 cameras is that reframing means cropping in, and the less of a fisheye look you want, the more you need to crop in. You know, as cropping in means reducing resolution, essentially. For reframing purposes, then, it is important to start with as many pixels as possible. So like with every other camera, the best video quality settings really depends on what you're hoping to achieve. 8K resolution is going to give you the most pixels to work with, but your frame rate options are going to be restricted. So let's talk about the 360 video mode settings on the Insta360 X5 and how you find and choose what works best for you. When you're in video mode, you can hit the settings icon at the bottom of the screen, and this is where you will find your resolution and frame rate. Like I say, 8K 30 frames per second is like the default, and it's the best for detail. And it gives you the sharpest video, but at the cost of bigger files and faster battery drain. If you want a higher frame rate, then you're going to need to drop down resolution. So you're going to have to go down to 5.7K, which allows 60 frames per second. And that is good for things like sports and slow motion. On the downside, you're going to lose some of those pixels for reframing. But despite that loss of pixels, some users do prefer to shoot at 5.7K, 60 frames per second, for the extra smooth motion that you get. And that's both smooth camera motion as well as smooth motion within the frame. But you know, if your video doesn't contain too much movement, then you're probably going to be better off choosing 8K 30 frames per second. Again, it's really down to taste, so you can choose, especially if you're doing a lot of reframing, then you might want to stick with 8K. It's all a balance and a trade-off. So there's this 5.7K plus mode, which is a sort of in between. So it's like a downscaled 8K, and it does save you some space on your card. It looks a little bit better than the standard 5.7K, but it doesn't quite match the 8K for sharpness. So if you're doing this because you want to save storage, then you might be better off just buying a bigger card. You know, because for example, the difference in price between a 512GB and a 1TB micro SD might be as little as like $30 or $40. So, you know, do you want to cripple the quality of your video just for the sake of a few dollars? And as I say, if you're after more dramatic, sort of slow motion shots, you can go down to 4K and then switch to 120 frames per second. Swipe down to open settings and then tap the settings cog and then scroll to image settings. For video encoding, I always choose H.265, but if you find that your editing system is struggling with this codec, which is a little bit more processor demanding, then you can switch to H.264. And as well, if you're uploading videos directly to social media, some platforms and some browsers still don't support H.265. Setting bitrate to high does mean you're going to add about 50% extra to the file size. So again, if you're saving space, keep this to standard. Otherwise, if you do want the best quality, set this to high. And if you're thinking about reframing and you're getting frustrated by zooming in and losing quality, then you really need to set bitrate to high. It does have a big impact. Below that, set the video sharpness to medium or low. If you do select high, then your video might look a little bit over sharpened and it might include more digital artifacts. So you can actually add sharpness later pretty easily if you find that your video is too soft. Then again, if you just want to upload directly to a platform, you might want to add this high sharpness in camera. So the next setting is anti-flicker, which you can change if you find artificial lights in your video are flickering or strobing. Basically, if you're in the USA or a country which uses 60 Hz electricity, switch to 60 Hz. If you're in Europe or a country that uses 50 Hz, switch to 50 Hz. The final setting here is called in-camera stitching. This actually only refers to photo mode, as the X5 cannot perform in-camera stitching for video. And I did a quick test, and from what I can see, with this enabled, it takes a little bit longer to process a 360 photo, but it should give you better stitching. In the settings menu, you can see at the top, we have these other settings called Active HDR and Adaptive Tone. Active HDR is a mode that was available on previous versions, while Adaptive Tone is a new update for the X5. Now, if we want to use Adaptive Tone at 5.7K resolution, 30 frames per second, you need to have Active HDR enabled first. But on the other hand, if you switch to 8K 30 frames per second, you can now shoot Adaptive Tone without enabling Active HDR first. And actually, Active HDR is not supported at 8K, but Adaptive Tone is. Now, both of these modes seem to be more effective when used in bright conditions. So we're talking about bright sunlight, for example, which creates deep shadows and bright highlights in video. And these modes try to counteract that by evening out the tones a bit. HDR is going to try to brighten the shadows and bring down the highlights. So why do we need two modes? What's the difference? Well, Active HDR works live while you're recording, and it balances out the brightest and darkest areas in real time to give you a more natural looking video straight from the camera. Adaptive Tone does things a little bit differently. So it records a full range of image data first, and then when you're editing and exporting in the app or studio, it's going to use that extra data to fine-tune the brightness, contrast and color for whatever or whichever angle or frame you pick. And so that means your footage can look its best no matter how you reframe it. So like I say, I'd only use these in situations that challenge the dynamic range of the camera. In other words, bright light. In low or modest light, I think you can switch them off. The X5 now has PureVideo Mode, and you'll find this similar mode on their Ace Pro action cameras. So this mode uses AI noise reduction and optimized dynamic range, and it's intended for use in low light situations. So if you're in a situation where there's basically not enough light and you're getting loads of noise and the image looks very dark, the X5 is going to give you this little notification recommending that you use PureVideo Mode. And this mode works up to 8K 30 frames per second. And you can combine this with the new Adaptive Tone, but only when set to 8K and 5.7K, not 4K. So when we capture 360 media, we can just simply use it as 360 media. So that just means that we can upload it to a platform, for example, YouTube, which supports 360 video, and then people can view it on 360 headsets or even on their smartphones, and they can move around and it's going to change the viewing angle as they watch it. So they sort of become like the cameraman themselves. And that actually includes 360 photos, which can be uploaded to a platform. Actually, Facebook supports 360 photos. So again, viewers can move their phone or their mouse and they can view different parts of the photo. They can look around 360 degrees. Another way to use 360 degree media is to reframe it. and then export it as a regular video. And to do this, we can use the Insta360 app for smartphones, or we can use the Insta360 Studio for desktop. If you really want the best quality video, then I recommend that you use the Insta360 Studio. If you just want to edit on the go and you want this kind of more fun features, a little bit simpler, and you've got presets as well, then use the app. And if you want to get to grips with the Insta360 Studio, because I know that it can be a little bit complicated, there's a little bit of a steep learning curve, I've made a whole series over on Patreon, which is pretty popular, and you can just work through it. I explain everything. You don't have to join as a member, you can just purchase it. Patreon now has this option where you can purchase things, single purchase, and then you'll have permanent access to that course whenever you need it. So if you're interested in that, go and check it out. And of course, it helps to support the channel and keep things ticking. And I'm always on Patreon as well, chatting to people. So if you get stuck with anything, I can give you some feedback there. Swipe from the left to open up the gallery. By default, you're going to get the last file that you recorded filling the screen. You can swipe up and down on the screen to go through your media files. In the middle, at the top, you're going to see the number of the media followed by the total number of media stored. And you can change the viewpoint of any 360 media just by swiping on the screen. To play a video, tap the play button in the middle. If you tap and hold a finger on the screen while the video is playing, playback speed increases 2 times, so you go twice as fast. On the left, we now have a volume slider, and on the right, we can tap the star if we want to favorite a photo or a video. Bottom left, we have a download button, so you need to be connected to your smartphone app to use this. Below that button, we have the mode and the settings used to capture the media. So you can tap that to reveal more details about the media. You can see when it was captured, how big the file is, the mode used, color profile, and so on. Tap the button top left to open the thumbnail mode, and now you can select media to view by tapping the thumbnail. But this view is also useful for downloading, favoriting, or deleting multiple files at once. Tap the checkbox button, and now you can tap the thumbnails to select the media files. At the bottom, you're now going to get 3 options. We've got trash, favorite, or download. And as well, you can select all by tapping the circle at the top. So if you want to just delete everything or download everything all at once, it's very easy just to do that. So these physical buttons on the X5 have extra functions as well as their main functions. So let's quickly go through those. So obviously press the power button once to power on, but when the camera is on, you can press once to turn the screen off. You can long press to power off, and if the camera has frozen, press the power button 5 seconds or more, and it's going to force the camera to shut down. Press the quick button to cycle through the presets. So we've got motorcycling, skiing, and outdoors. Once you choose a preset, the camera is set to those parameters, so then it's going to save you time switching from one activity to another. So after you select a preset, you're going to get this corresponding symbol in the top right of the screen next to the battery level. So once we get to the last preset, we get this plus button. So we can tap that and we can add more presets to the quick button. So I'm going to add ball sports. So we now get the settings that we're going to add, but we can actually edit these settings first, and we can also edit the name before we add the preset. But I'm just going to leave this as it is and then tap add preset. Now it appears after outdoors in the list. We can also edit a selected preset after we've added it. We just press the quick button, and at the bottom below the setting name, we have the media settings. So next to that is this little blue edit button. Tap the edit button, and now you can edit those parameters as we saw before. For example, we could change the color profile from standard to vivid, and that's going to add more contrast and saturation. So if you want to delete a preset from the list, just tap the blue edit button and then tap the trash can top right. If you want to switch out of a selected preset, just select another mode. When the camera is powered on, press the record or the shutter button to start recording or take a photo. While you're recording, if you press and hold down the record button, you can actually cancel a recording. And this means that it just stops recording and nothing is going to be saved. So, for example, if you know that you definitely don't want this shot, then it saves you having to go in and delete it. You can also start capture when the camera is powered off using a function called Quick Capture. So this is enabled by default, and it's set to use whatever your last camera settings were. But you can change that, so just swipe down to open settings and find the quick capture button, which looks like a rocket. Tap that, and at the top you've got the switch to enable or disable this feature, and below you can see that it's set to use the last shooting mode. So basically the last mode that it was in when you turned it off. When you use quick capture, it will power on and use that mode. If we select specify shooting mode, we can now get more options. We can choose the shooting mode, we can choose shooting parameters as well as image parameters. So you can just go through those and choose whatever settings you want here. You can choose between 360 and single lens mode as well. So now when you press the record button, the camera is going to power on, starts doing whatever you told it to do. And in this case, I'm just recording 360 video. And now when I stop recording, the camera actually gives you a few seconds and you can stop it if you don't want it to power off. Otherwise, it will just power itself off. Next to the record button is the menu button, and by default the menu button switches between photo and video modes, as I showed you earlier in the video. But this button and the quick button can be customized. So swipe down and tap the cog to open settings, scroll down to customize button and then select that. At the top we can choose which button we want to customize, so quick button or menu button. So by default, the quick button is set to select presets, but there's actually a whole bunch of other options here. If you choose shoot with custom settings, you now get a menu of various settings that you can choose from. You can even set the Q button to act as a quick capture button. So you'd use that instead of using the record button, or as well as, I'm not sure. And if you scroll down, you see that it allows you to use this Q button for all kinds of things. And I think they're basically pretty much self-explanatory. So, if you find yourself not really using the Q button, why not assign it to something else more useful? Tap where it says menu button, and now you can customize that button as well. And you can use it as a power button, a record or shutter button, and you can use it to switch between single lens and 360 mode. So what is the point of doing this if you already have a record button and a power button? I mean, the thing about action cameras is sometimes they're fixed in places where some buttons are easier to access than others. And as well, if you're wearing gloves, it might just be easier to press a button rather than swipe the screen. So this Customize Buttons feature allows you just to make your camera a little bit more flexible. The X5 has a pre-recording function, and that allows you to record video up to 60 seconds before you hit the record button. So here's how to do that. Swipe down and tap the pre-recording button. You can set it to record 30, 45 or 60 seconds of video. So I'm just going to choose 30 seconds here and then tap start recording. At the bottom you can now see that this counter starts ticking as if I was recording video. And if we watch it, we can see that once it gets to 30 seconds, it actually stops ticking. So why does it do that? Well, the thing is that it hasn't actually stopped. It's now recording video continuously, the 30 seconds, but it's discarding anything older than 30 seconds. When I press the record button, you can see the counter starts counting. It goes red and it goes beyond 30 seconds. And so what this feature does is it makes sure that you have 30 seconds recorded before you hit the record button, or 45 or 60 if you chose those. And this saves you from missing any action, but it also saves you from just having to record everything constantly and having a massive file at the end. So if you want to stop pre-recording, tap the square in the middle of this circle. InstaFrame lets you simultaneously capture an auto-framed flat video and a 360 video at the same time. So that means you get both instant, shareable videos, as well as the flexibility to reframe in 360 later. The 360 video has a max resolution of 5.7K, and the flat video has a max resolution of 1080p. For the flat 1080p video, there's also a face tracking option. So if you have this running, the camera is going to follow your movement or just, try to keep you in the center. For example, you can set the camera down on a tripod and shoot a video following your movement. So this might be useful for social media work. And it's actually a lot like having a smartphone and a gimbal, which if you watch any of my other videos on this channel, you will have seen. I guess the mode might look a bit complicated, but the controls here give you plenty of options for the type of video that you actually want to capture. Two buttons on the right create an automatic 360 spin or a 360 barrel roll. So what you do, just start recording, then tap the button and it's going to create the effect. Tap where it says rear view with an arrow to open the various settings for the flat 1080p video. So just remember the 360 video is going to be reframed later, so these settings don't actually affect that. The buttons at the top allow you to choose the view of the camera. So you can have the camera use the front camera, the back camera, you can choose to look up or look down, and as well you can choose custom, and that just means you can swipe to choose which direction you want to look. You can toggle horizon lock on or off, and if you have this on, the horizon will stay level. And you can also toggle distortion correction on or off. With this on, you remove lens distortion. At the bottom is a zoom slider, so we can just slide it along to adjust the zoom. Back in the main screen next to the view settings is the tracking button. If you tap that, the camera is going to find a face somewhere and it's going to lock onto it. And if you move around, you can see the camera now follows the movement. When the camera is tracking a subject, the light below the screen is green. As well, you can change your position in the frame by swiping the screen. So you don't have to have the camera on a tripod. You could also use this mode on the invisible selfie stick if you just want to make sure the camera keeps you centered. If you want your flat 1080p video to be horizontal, tap the settings and you can switch between vertical and horizontal there. Timelapse mode allows you to shoot up to 11K resolution, 360-degree time-lapse videos. And they're going to come out at 30 frames per second, but you can set the interval from between 2 seconds all the way up to 2 minutes per frame. TimeShift is Insta360's name for hyperlapse. So in other words, time-lapse videos where the camera moves. So you can be walking, running, driving, skiing, and whatever. But whatever your mode of movement, there are a few things to think about. So you can choose between 8K and 5.7K. As well, you can choose how much time is speeded up to 60 times, or you can just leave it on auto. If you leave it on auto, the camera is going to decide how fast to make the time shift, and it's going to depend on how long you record for. So obviously, the longer you record, the faster time is going to be speeded up or shifted. In bullet time mode, you need to attach the X5 to one of the bullet time accessories. So you've got the version that uses a string, which is probably the simplest, but this is actually the bullet time selfie stick 2.0, and this extends up to 1.2 meters, and it's made from aluminium. So it works both as an invisible selfie stick for standard 360 shots, and as well you can adjust it to use it as a bullet time handle for swinging the camera around in the bullet time mode. So this one lets you set the handle to 3 different angles. You've got 65 degrees, 75 degrees, or 90 degrees. And this gives you some kind of creative options for your bullet time shots. The bottom of the selfie stick has got this 1/4-inch mounting point, so you could add tripod legs here if you want. But now, one advantage to using the stick over the string is that it stops the camera from spinning around as it's circling. In loop recording mode, the camera records video but only keeps a certain amount, depending on the settings. Most of the regular 360 video settings are available, so you can go up to 8K and up to 60 frames per second. The bottom setting is loop duration, which can be set from 1 minute up to 30 minutes. So basically what you're setting here is the maximum duration of the video. So if you set it to 1 minute, you're only going to get 1 minute of video maximum, even if you record for 10 hours. But if you did that, what you would get is the last minute from that 10 hours. Road mode on the X5 is a kind of long duration loop recording feature, and it's designed specifically for activities, driving activities, motorcycle trips, that kind of thing. And it lets you set a maximum storage space or a recording duration. So the camera just continuously overwrites the oldest footage within that limit. So it's like loop recording. And it just makes sure that you capture your journey and you don't have to worry about running out of memory. So when you first select this mode, it walks you through some settings, but you can always come back and change all those settings at any time. When you return after the first setup, this is what it's going to look like. You've got all the regular resolution and frame rate video settings here. So loop space is the amount of space on your SD card that you're going to reserve just for recording road mode videos. And so when it's full, the camera is simply going to overwrite, which is delete old video. So you can use the slider to set this. So for example, if I set it to about 30 gigabytes of my 256 gigabyte card, it's going to record a maximum of about 50 minutes of video. at the current settings. So if I change to say 4K video, then 30 gigabytes is going to allow quite a bit more video. So by default, the X5 will automatically start recording road mode video when it receives power from the charging port. So, if you set up your X5 and you connect it to power from your car, so when you start your car, the X5 receives power and then it starts immediately recording. So that way, when you're driving, you know the camera is recording without having to remember to start it. So if you want to disable this, you can tap power off charging and then switch to charge only. Timestamp watermark adds a timestamp to the video. And if you want to disable that, you can do that here. Starlapse mode on the X5 is split into two distinct options, Starlapse video and Star Trails photo. Both modes are designed to create a night sky view of the stars with trails. You can set the duration up to 10 hours and a timer. The timer gives you a countdown before the shooting starts. Return to the main shooting screen, and in the top right corner, you'll see exposure settings. If you swipe left on the screen, you open the manual photo settings panel that lets you adjust key parameters like shutter speed, ISO, and white balance. Burst mode allows you to take 18 megapixel photos in bursts. So in settings, you can choose to set a timer, and that gives you up to 15 seconds to get into position. Because with a 360 photo, you're going to need a timer, or you're going to end up with a photo of your hand. And you can also choose how many photos are taken in the burst and for how long. For example, you can have it take 15 photos in 1 second, or you can have it take 15 photos more slowly, say over a period of up to 10 seconds. The interval mode is basically the same as time-lapse mode, but instead of creating a video, it creates individual photos. And it's going to take 72 megapixel or 18 megapixel photos at whatever interval you set. And you can go up to 120 seconds between each photo. Photo mode is pretty simple, isn't it? You can choose between 72 megapixel or 18 megapixel 360 photos. You can also set a timer up to 15 seconds. So we've also got some new settings here for the X5. HDR settings. If we have HDR on, the camera automatically balances highlights and shadows for photos with high dynamic range. Like with video, this is good for bright daylight scenes. With it set to off, we just shoot a standard 360 photo with no HDR processing. If we set it to AEB, which is auto exposure bracketing, this allows you to capture multiple photos at different exposure levels to create a high dynamic range image. So this is again useful in situations with high contrast, like landscapes with bright skies and dark foregrounds, where a single exposure might not capture details in both areas. After selecting, you can set the number of photos and exposure step on the right side of the HDR photo option. So we can choose between 3, 5, and 7 photos. So if you choose 5, it's going to take 5 different photos at 5 different exposure levels, and then it's going to merge them together. For the range in exposure between photos, we can choose between plus or minus 0.3 up to plus or minus 4. The exposure step range changes depending on the number of photos you choose. The more photos you select, the less of an exposure range you will get between each photo. So again, in the text version of the video, I'll put suggestions for different settings there. If you choose single lens, apart from the addition of Me mode, there are fewer mode options available. In this mode, you cannot swipe the screen to change the view, but you can tap the camera switch button bottom right. And we've also got the field of view settings. If we switch to single lens mode and now switch to a regular video mode, the image is going to be cropped 16:9 or 9:16. So tap the settings or swipe up, and now you can change the resolution, the frame rate, and the aspect ratio. There are different field of view settings depending on whether you choose 16:9 or 9:16. In 9:16, you get ultra, dewarp, and linear. In 16:9, you get those plus mega and action as well. So while Me mode is actually under the single lens tab, it in fact uses both cameras and then stitches them together. But the video that you get at the end is not a 360 video. It has a fixed point of view. So if you want to use single lens mode, but you also want to be able to reframe the video later, you can use this FreeFrame Mode. When you switch to this mode, you'll notice you now get this unusual preview window with the corners removed. If you prefer not to have this, you can just tap the button in the left corner. In FreeFrame mode, you have 6 field of view options: linear, dewarp, ultra, action, mega, and max. In single lens photo mode, you can switch between 9 megapixels and 36 megapixel photos. Swipe from the right to open exposure and white balance settings, and you can also change ratios and field of view here. So the X5 has 4 inbuilt microphones, and there are various settings for enhancing the voice and removing background noise. Swipe down to open the menu and swipe along to the last page. Now tap Audio Settings. Scroll down until you find Audio Mode, and here you can choose Wind Reduction, Strong or Weak. And there's also Voice Enhancement, which uses various kind of computational processes to remove noise and improve the voice sound. And then we can also choose stereo or 360 audio. So stereo is just basically switching off any audio enhancements, and it just leaves you with the pure sound. 360 audio only works with 360 video, and it gives you a spatial sound. So that will be good for 3D headsets, for example. And if you tap the little eye here, you'll get a summary of what each setting does. So you can attach external mics either using the X5 mic adapter, which plugs into the USB-C port, or you can connect Bluetooth mics. And it's actually possible to connect a variety of Bluetooth mics. There's also the Insta360 Air, which can connect via Bluetooth. Bear in mind, you can only connect one Bluetooth microphone to the X5 at a time. But there's one thing you can do, and that is to record the Bluetooth mic and the inbuilt mics of the X5 simultaneously with the audio recording onto separate channels. So you've got one for the external mic and one for the inbuilt mic. So the Insta360 Mic Air does have some advantages over connecting a third-party Bluetooth mic, for example the DJI Mic 2, to your X5. The first one is that the Mic Air can act as a remote, and the second one is that you have a couple of settings in the X5 for the Mic Air. So here's how to connect your Mic Air to the X5. So it's actually very simple. It just has this one button which is for all the controls. Now in the manual, it says to connect the Mic Air to your X5, first power on, and then double press the button to put it into pairing mode. So when the X5 searches for it, it should appear, and then you can click on it to connect. But if this isn't working, then there's 2 more options that you can try. With the Mic Air powered off, press and hold the power button, and then keep holding until the light starts flashing more rapidly. So that's over 6 seconds. And now try searching, and if it still doesn't connect, then you can do the same thing again. So from powered off, press and hold until it starts flashing rapidly, but now double press the button again. And you'll see the little indicator light changes color a little bit. It goes between dark blue and a lighter blue. And using one of those methods, you should eventually find the microphone and be able to pair to it. The thing is that once you've actually gone through this pairing procedure, the Mic Air should automatically pair with the X5 as soon as you power on both devices. And so that way you don't have to keep going into settings, searching for the mic and blah, blah, blah. You don't need to do all this again. And now if you want to use your Mic Air as a remote, once it's connected, a single press is going to start and stop recording or take a photo if you're in photo mode. Double press is going to enable or disable noise reduction. And a triple press is going to mute or unmute the mic. And for those settings, just 2 basic settings. In the X5, you can switch these on and off, enable or disable noise reduction, or switch the indicator light on or off. So once you've got an external mic connected, a message pops up asking if you want to use dual track recording. Otherwise, you can go into the setting and enable it. For some reason, it's called dual track radio and not audio. I think that's a typo and it should actually say audio. Below, you can see the Bluetooth mic and the inbuilt mics, and you can choose the audio treatment for the inbuilt mics. Tap below and choose your gain adjustment level. So endurance mode on the Insta360 X5 is like an extra economical recording mode that limits some features, and that will significantly extend battery life, allowing for longer continuous recordings. So the latest firmware update for this video is 1.4.2, and that allows you to get 2 hours of 8K 30 frames per second video, or around 3.5 hours of 5.7K at 24 frames per second. To enable, swipe down, swipe across, tap endurance mode, and then enable it. The first time you do this, it lists all the features that are going to be disabled to preserve battery. Insta360 just released ND filters specifically designed to work with the X5. And they come in 3 strengths. We've got ND16, ND32, and ND64. So as you go up, they double in strength. So 16 is 4 stops, 32 is 5 stops, and 64 is 6 stops of light reduction. And they easily just screw with a little twist onto the X5, and the X5 should then recognize them and ask you if you want to change your settings. Otherwise, you can do this manually. So swipe down, swipe left, and tap accessories, and then you should see ND filters at the top. And then you can tap to choose the strength. So you're only going to see this setting here if the X5 has recognized that you've put the ND filters onto the lenses. And if it hasn't recognized the ND filters, you can just take them off and put them on again. The reason the X5 needs to know the strength of the ND filter is so it can adjust exposure and processing to match the filter's light reduction. And this just ensures your footage isn't underexposed or misprocessed and helps preserve optimal image quality. So in the top right of the screen, once you've got the ND filters on, you're going to see this icon which shows the ND filter strength. So this is the GPS preview remote with inbuilt mic, and this added accessory allows you to control the camera remotely. It also adds GPS data to your video, and it comes with a built-in microphone. Now, just make sure to update the firmware of the device before you start using it. So this is how you do that. You power on the remote by pressing and holding the power button. Open the Insta360 app on your phone or tablet. In the app, go to the Me tab and then Accessory Settings. The remote should now appear for firmware updates, so tap it and install any updates. And wait for the remote to restart. To pair the remote on your X5, turn on both devices. On the X5, swipe down on the screen and go to Bluetooth Remote. Open that, and when your X5 discovers the remote, tap on its name to pair. Next time you power on the GPS remote, it's going to automatically connect to your X5 if it's powered on. And actually, once your X5 and GPS remote have been paired like this, when you power on the remote again, if the X5 is powered off, it powers on the X5 automatically and then connects. So using the remote, you can start, stop recording, take photos, and you can change many of the settings that are available in the X5, modes, camera settings, and so on. And you've got the battery info for both devices and remaining SD card space shown at the top of the remote. You can actually use the remote to do a quick capture, which then powers on the X5 and begins recording immediately. To use the remote as a microphone, switch the remote into microphone mode. Like when adding a Bluetooth mic, you will see an audio level on the X5 once it's switched over. The built-in mic includes advanced noise cancellation with adjustable settings. We've got off, normal, or strong. As well, the remote allows you to set audio gain and bit depth, 24-bit or 32-bit float in the settings. So now, this bit depth doesn't control the audio quality recorded on the X5. What this actually controls is the audio quality recorded onto the remote. And that's because by default, the remote saves a local backup audio track to its own memory as a safety copy. And you can access this via the USB-C port.
But just bear in mind that 32-bit float is a kind of different beast to 24-bit audio. It's got a much wider dynamic range, and it's almost impossible to overload. So you can record and you don't have to worry about sounds distorting or any of that kind of stuff. So this is the mic from the GPS remote now, to give you an idea of what it sounds like.
You can also preview and delete audio recordings directly from the remote. The remote has over 5 gigabytes of internal storage for audio, which gives you about 8 hours of 32-bit float audio storage.
Yeah, so that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. And if you want to say hi, come over to Patreon or the Discord. It's all free to join, no commitment. And, just say hi and I promise I'll say hi back.